Hello, everybody. I'm Joel Palafinkel. I'm the founder of Sutton Capital. And I wanted to just talk about a couple topics that a lot of our students, alumni, people that are trying to switch careers have been asking. So I thought it'd be just good to just put together a really quick presentation to run through it. So I'm going to go through some compensation data, some analysis, some stats. So just want to share that data. We can't guarantee the accuracy of that public data, but just want to let you know it's for informational, educational purposes only. So I just want to leave that disclaimer out there. But let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm Joel. I currently work in venture capital, private markets, and I didn't always work in that space. So I'm going to go through my history, my background for a couple seconds. Started out working in engineering. So that was my undergraduate degree, came from a technical background, super technical background, working in deep tech. So deep tech, essentially, I was working on building flight simulators for the Department of Defense. And, that role essentially was working with the customers, working with different stakeholders. So it's essentially kind of like a program management role. And it was a really great experience. The firm that I was working for actually put me through my PhD. I did my PhD in healthcare, did a very narrow project, got done, and then realized that while I was doing my PhD in modeling and simulation, there was a couple financial courses that I took as electives. And that's when I really fell in love with financial modeling, private markets, investing, started going to a lot of founder events, and started going really deep on venture capital and private equity. And it was very difficult for me to break in, but I finally did. Somebody gave me a chance. And I ended up moving to New York because I wanted to be closer to Wall Street and ended up working in technology, building the tech for Wall Street. So although I was not directly working on Wall Street, I was able to be around investing, be around the investing ecosystem and build connections and networks, and then finally pivoted into venture capital, and then ended up launching my own private investing firm. We invest in deep tech and fintech, ironically, because that's my industry expertise. So if I were to summarize what I do, I like to invest in various technologies that have great opportunities. I also like real estate. Have invested in a few fund managers as an LP, and I've also invested directly into companies. I also like building. So I've built some software and tools for the ecosystem. One of the software tools that I built is for founders and venture capitals. The software is called SpinUp. I definitely missed building, although I was still investing, but there's no reason why you can't do both. And then one of the most exciting things that I've done is I've launched an education company to help several other people break into venture capital and private equity. But the most magical part that is important to keep in mind when you're building some type of educational platform is you need the community. So we have a community of mentors, of investors, of institutional allocators that invest in different sectors. So that's been really fun to kind of build this community and build a lot of value and really see real impact, helping people come into our program and then switch careers. If you think about the career of private equity, venture capital, asset management, there's really two stages, right? So you're either going to join a fund. That means you get a job at a fund somehow. You could be working in technology, you could be working in consulting, and somehow you network your way into getting a job at a fund. Some people do an MBA. MBAs could be good for some people. The issue is they're really, really expensive. They take a lot of time. And even after an MBA, there's still no guarantee that you get a job. And most importantly, the people that usually teach the curriculum at an MBA never are really finance professionals. They're professors, they're academics. So they're not in the industry. They're not in the hottest trends of what's happening in venture capital and private equity. So what we've done is we've launched a special program that helps you accelerate your career to get a job at a fund, to join a fund, no matter what your background is. You could be in tech, you could be in healthcare, you could be a pharmacist, you could be working in sales and real estate. Many of our students just come from all walks of life, and they may just be missing a few facets of skills that are needed to kind of make that pivot. So we have the VC private equity executive program. And then the second stage of your life as an institutional allocator is you joined a fund, you got experience, you know how to work at a fund, you know how to allocate capital, you know how to look at companies to invest in. So you realize, wow, I can do this myself. Why don't I build my own brand and why don't I launch my own fund? So I've seen this time and time again. We have a second program which helps you launch your own fund. And then over time, you'll learn how to allocate to different funds, to different direct deals. But if you launch a fund, a lot of times what's really crazy is you'll see people that are launching the funds based on their industry expertise. So you'll see people that are coming from Washington, D.C., they worked in cybersecurity for 2 decades, and now they're in their late 40s and they're like, wow, I'm going to launch a fund focused on cybersecurity. There's people that I know that live on Wall Street that have worked on Wall Street for 10 years and they're investing in fintech, financial technology. There's people that I know that have worked in the food innovation space. They're PhDs, they're scientists, and they're investing in very breakthrough technologies that are still maybe 10 years out. So again, you can either join a fund or launch a fund and eventually allocate to assets. So what does the fund manager program entail? You know, the fund manager executive program that we offer really 4 things. We help you build the practical training. We help you learn what it takes to analyze deals, look at the financial models, look at the financial statements, and determine if this company is an investable opportunity or not. You're learning that from real venture capital and private equity investors. You also get mentorship and one-on-one coaching. So if you're looking to pivot your career, you may need support on possibly even rewriting your resume. You might even need support to do practice interviews. So you really need to kind of master these skills to be able to break in as fast as you can. And then one of the most important things, they say your network is your net worth. So we have several investor events. We just did one a couple of days ago in New York. And this is a great way for you to meet hiring managers, just learn about the industry, build relationships long-term, because you never know when these people may have open roles. But because of the goodwill that you provided and the relationship that you have, maybe you'd be a great candidate to kind of build that connection point and possibly join their firm and add value. And then one of the most core important things to keep in mind is building your academic knowledge and really learning how to do financial modeling. So if you work in private equity, you're really going to need to know how to do leverage buyout models. You know, some other quantitative skill sets and models could be going through a 3-statement financial model, really understanding discounted cash flow, really understanding waterfall analysis. Waterfall analysis helps you understand how, when there's a return after an investment, how does all that money trickle down to all the investors, almost like a waterfall. So these are the 4 pillars. Again, practical training, one-on-one coaching and career support, investor networking, and then number 3, the academic financial modeling. So the second program is the Fund Accelerator. We help people actually go out, build, launch, and scale their fund. So that's the Fund Accelerator. We're on cohort 9. But the most important thing that we do is we build a bridge. So as you see on the left side, there's kind of this dark area, this unknown state. It's a place that you probably don't want to be. And then if you look on the right side, it's where all the green is. So our goal is to kind of help you see that bridge and cross that bridge from your current state to this exciting opportunity and hopefully a job in private equity and venture capital. So our goal is to kind of build the plan to get you there. And everybody gets there different ways. So these are a couple success stories of people that have kind of gone through our program and gotten to that dream state. So you can do this at your own pace. And what we do is we work with different students to help them map out a plan to get to where they need to be. And it also doesn't really matter how old you are, how long you've been working, what career you come from, as long as there's a plan in place to pivot. If you look at me, I don't have an MBA, I don't come from an Ivy League school, but I did have a great, strong technical background. So you want to lean into that and embrace that, and embrace that you're not initially from Wall Street. And if you can find those gaps and close in on those gaps to kind of get where you need to be, that definitely helps. So one of the first examples, you know, is this chemist that was in our program. He had a full-time job working at a big chemical firm. He was also busy as a parent and also as a husband, had to commute to work. So super busy. However, our program really just needs you to be involved for a couple hours a week. And if you can commit to that, you can be able to, get the practical training, learn the financial model, learn the financial models, and really outperform in the interview. So we have two paces that we like to work with students on. And, one of the paces is really slow pace. This is for the really busy working professional that's just got a lot on their plate. They're really, tied up with a lot of things, but they do know that this is important to them and they do want to get into the industry and they want to cross that bridge. They're just kind of doing it slowly and surely at their own pace, with the bandwidth that they have. So this chemist was able to actually land a job at a $1.5 billion firm in about 5 months. And he did this part-time, and the role essentially was a principal role. And I know that this person ended up getting promoted to a more senior role. It's pretty close to being a managing director now, but that tells you that you can use the skills that you had in your current role and move laterally, hopefully at the same pay rate, or hopefully even more. But you can use the equity and the skill sets and the experience that you have in your current industry to pivot if you do a good job in the interviews. We also just had a person who comes from a nonprofit background who was just really engaged in our program. Same thing, he was on a slower path because he's just busy with family and work, but he landed a partner level role. So this is possible. We have seen students do this. And then there is more aggressive, more drastic, fast track cases where people are just trying to pivot as fast as possible. So I got actually 3 examples here. There was a healthcare professor. She actually just got laid off from her healthcare role. I think it was like a healthcare management, project management role. And she had 2 options. She could either try to pivot into VC and just kind of take a break, or she could take our program, try to pivot into VC part-time, but also apply to healthcare roles, which is the knowledge that she has and the expertise that she has, and just kind of focus on that as well at the same time. So that's exactly what she did. Instead of kind of panicking and trying to kind of get a job and stay back into the same healthcare space and then still be unhappy, she was interviewing for healthcare roles full-time because she had all the bandwidth, and then part-time she was in our program building those skills, building that equity, and then she went ahead and also applied to venture capital roles. And fortunately she landed a role in 2 months, and she shared a testimonial about this on our YouTube channel. And then 2 more examples. There was an unemployed B-school grad. This was a very drastic case as well. This person, if they didn't get a job, they'd have to leave the country. So we kind of put them on this fast, aggressive path to kind of build all the skills, learn the financial models, nail the, the practice mock interviews, and really be ready to outperform in the interview. And that's exactly what she did. So she landed a role in 2 months, was able to stay in the country. And then she later on reached out to us because she got a job at a bigger established firm. And her name is Victoria. She came on our YouTube show, and that was amazing. So she came back and told her story, which I thought was really helpful for the community. And then finally, this was not too long ago. There was a guy that was in marketing, super proactive person, didn't go through all of the lecture content, skipped around to the main financial models, went through the self-guided sessions, also went to some of our live sessions that were taught by real instructors in the industry. And he kind of poked around and got the most important, valuable lessons that he thought were going to be important. He spent some time with us, fixed up his resume, did a bunch of practice interviews with us. He was able to nail a role at a private equity consulting firm, and it took him about a month and a half to do that. So again, we will work with you if it's something that's of interest to you to kind of build a personalized plan based on your bandwidth and based on what's going on. The most important thing is that you cross that bridge. So we want to get you there if it's something that you want to do. When it comes to comp, now there's a large thing to think about when it comes to comp. It depends on the size of the fund. It depends on the role that you have. But this is a great compensation database. It's called Heidrick and Struggles. They've got a lot of data here, but on average, if you're looking at the associate role, you're looking at 6 figures, and then as you kind of progress into more senior roles like associate vice president, principal, you're looking at, the higher 6 figures. And then in its extreme, situations, you're getting into the 7-figure roles. But again, it depends on the firm. But this just shows data that proves that, look, these roles, can get you up to, six to high six-figure to seven-figure roles. It just depends on the job that you're applying to, and again, how well you interview in the role. So, just kind of looking at this, it also depends on the size of the fund. But on average, like I said, you can take a look at that database, go ahead and review it and see if it makes sense. Couple other hot topics: part-time pivot. I'm working full-time at a firm. How do I make this pivot? How do I kind of make the changes? You want to already act like you're a VC or private equity investor, even when you're not one yet. You want to have that mentality. So you need to kind of build the skills to analyze deals, write investment memos about certain deals or certain sectors that you're passionate about or you think that are great opportunities. You definitely need to step up your network. So set up a lot of coffee chats with VCs. It's okay to do cold messages on LinkedIn, as long as you can connect and meet new people and also build authentic relationships with people. That's really where the opportunities come out. You really need to also build financial modeling skills. So the financial modeling skills are less important when it comes to venture capital, but it is important on the venture capital side to really understand cap tables, to really look at the financial statements, the P&L statements of startups, especially when they're generating a little revenue, to really understand that. And then when you're getting into PE, the financial models are going to be much more demanding. So we go through all of that content within our program. We've got people that have worked at Goldman Sachs, top investment banks, and have been in venture capital and private equity for a long time teaching. So you've got the best of the best experts kind of sharing their knowledge and skilling you up. You want to outperform in the interview. So you need that strong resume. You need to shine in the interview. If you don't actually have a good resume, you won't even get the first call. So you need to really have the right characteristics, the right buzzwords on your resume. You need to highlight yourself in the best way possible to make sure that you hopefully get that first call. And then in the interview, that's the most important thing too. You have to outperform the interview. One of the first things they're going to ask you is, why did you want to join our firm? So you really have to do research on the firm and figure out why you would add value to the firm. And then probably the second question immediately would be like, look, you know what? We're a healthcare firm. Can you share 3 healthcare deals that you think are great for us to invest in? So, after you do that research, think about possible opportunities that you're aware of that could possibly be great investments. That goes back to acting like a VC or private equity investor, even when you're not there. So really pretty much interview and act like you're already part of the team. And, they call that the assumptive close, really acting like you're already, integrated into their ecosystem. What happens at these jobs? What is the job? How is the job? Well, what are you going to do at these firms? One of the first things you're going to do, top of funnel, every Monday, you're going to be required to bring in an investment. So you can find these investments from networking with people. You can do outbound research. You can cold message people on LinkedIn. They have a lot of databases. You can talk to other investors. You can talk to investment bankers. You can go to events where there's founders. But this is called sourcing, because you're finding deals, and then on Monday you're screening them. So a lot of times you get a lot of candid feedback from the senior partner at the firm, but you also want to screen and prioritize, because there's only so many investments that you can look at a certain time. So this Monday meeting, it's usually called an investment committee meeting or a Monday partners meeting. And it's essentially like a Shark Tank pitch where you're coming in, if you're like coming in at a mid-level professional trying to come into a firm, you'd be probably a principal. You'd be responsible and judged on the quality of the investments that you're bringing in. If you bring in a really cool AI company, what's special about it? Everybody's doing AI. AI is the hype. So you really have to figure out how this company is going to be an outsized investment opportunity. And then obviously, if you work for an investment firm, you're probably going to get a lot of inbound on your website and people sending decks. You might also just get a lot of cold inbound messages on LinkedIn as well. When you go deeper and you have that first meeting, you're probably going to get sent to a second layer of questions that the partner might ask you. And then from there, you're going to do more due diligence. And then you're going to get this thing called the data room. A data room is pretty much like a Dropbox folder that has all of the financials, all of the investment documents, So, many investors ask for bank statements to actually make sure that there really is money in the bank. And then, a lot of times in the final stages, you're going to write this thing called an investment memo. It's essentially pretty much a long research report that details and highlights why you should invest in this company. A lot of times that's also translated into a presentation, and that's called an investment committee. So that's the final meeting that you have before you actually make an investment. Talking about the different layers and levels of the career, if you're 50 years old, you should not have to join a venture capital firm as an analyst. What you should do, kind of like the chemist, you should be able to carry weight on all of the industry experience that you have and have that translate to a lateral move. So leverage your industry experience, learn the hard and soft skills as fast as possible so you can justify that senior position and that lateral move. So it shows that you are up to par. So try to build that skill set as fast as possible. And the riches are in the niches, so really think about like where you can add value, especially if you have expertise at a specific fund that you're applying to, right? So different types of roles are going to have you be more aligned to those kind of funds. So like if there's a fund that focuses on quantum computing, it's going to be a long learning curve to kind of really understand the technology, to go deep, do the research. So someone ideally who probably has a PhD or has an engineering background, they would be great for a quantum computing fund. If you have a marketing background, maybe it makes sense for you to work for a consumer product type of fund, because they love people that understand products. And, a lot of these products require really heavy marketing and branding and positioning. So your superpower could be that. And that's what makes you add a lot of value to that kind of fund. A lot of times too, the portfolio companies need a lot of marketing support. So you could be a value add investor where you're helping these companies grow and helping them pick the right marketing and growth strategy. I've also seen venture funds that also have marketing agencies as well. So that's a great extension to their investment strategy and obviously another revenue channel. Another question I've heard is locations. I don't live in San Francisco or New York. Can I even get a job without having to move? The funny thing is a lot of these hubs that are tertiary hubs also have venture capital ecosystems. I know a huge hub that's now in Nashville, and I know this woman that actually posts YouTube videos and podcasts with all these different investors, and you would never think that it would be in Nashville. So all these secondary locations are developing tech hubs, and where there's tech hubs, there's going to be venture capital investments and innovation. You can also search for hybrid and remote roles. With venture capital, the roles are circulated around the tech ecosystem. So they do embrace a lot of times you being able to, work remote or hybrid. And a lot of times you're more trying to find the best investment opportunities and bring those investment opportunities in on Mondays. So you shouldn't have to be micromanaged in terms of like if you clocked in or clocked out. It's really your output versus the hours that you're working. So you want to work smart and you want to work hard, but it's not the results are not quantified by like how many hours you're sitting in a desk and proving that you sat somewhere. Finance experience. Why would a fund hire me when I have no finance experience? Well, the good thing is you can learn finance. And when you're kind of building your practical skills, you're integrating your finance skills, the new finance skills that you had within that. So you have to showcase that you have learned those financial skills and built mastery. And you should try to learn those financial modeling skills very fast. You can also bring value to the table. You can provide a network to a venture fund through unique founders that amazing LPs. LPs are people that invest in fund managers and then, provide access to other networks. So figure out how you can use your superpowers and your connection points to add value and stand out against the other candidates as a differentiator to hopefully win the job offer. And then finally, you can also provide strategic support. So we have people that come from a tech background or an IT background or a consulting background. That natural industry skill and expertise can complement a fund. Some people that may have an accounting background, they might have done some fractional CFO to help the founders, even help the fund run some of their CFO operations. Having tech skills, having product skills, those are all really valuable. So those are all great things to have. So in summary, we want to be the bridge to help you get to where you need to be. So if you want to learn more, check out our website. It's suttoncapital.co. And I wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much.